What is up, guys? I am that boarding school dude back with another episode. Look, a lot of requests have been coming in for the same school. I'm going to try to give it a fair shake here. It was the very first boarding school that I went to, Church Farm School. Church Farm School located in Exton, Pennsylvania. Woo! Man, a lot of memories from this place. So we're going to get right into it. So let's go. Okay, guys, here we go. So, Church Farm School. What is the Church Farm School? The Church Farm School is an all-boys boarding school located in Exton, Pennsylvania, and I went there. I went to Church Farm School. I believe I was 14 years old when I went. I went to public school from kindergarten up until 9th grade, and I was a little young. To be honest, I was the youngest kid in my class, or one of the youngest kids in my class. I remember in middle school, one of my teachers telling my parents, look, he's just not mature enough to be in this grade. You should really hold him back and let him, let him repeat this year and gain some maturity. Long story short, and things came to a head after my 9th grade year. My parents were just absolutely fed up with support system in the public school system. It wasn't like I wasn't bright. It wasn't like I didn't have the scholastic aptitude not to excel in public school. I mean, I remember when I got tested in middle school, you get tested every year and this and that. I mean, I was always in the top 99 percentile in math and science and English and all that kind of stuff. I think the problem for me personally was that I just wasn't mature enough to handle it. Long story short, my parents had a sit down with some of the guidance counselors at public school, and they were saying what can we do to support our son? And I remember sitting in the meeting, and one of the guidance counselors looking directly across the table at my parents and saying, yeah, there's nothing we could do for him. So he's kind of on his own. And literally it was at that moment that my parents decided, you're out of here. You're going to private school. So long story short, I believe that conversation happened in the summertime, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks before the next school year started. And long story short, Church Farm School was the only school that close to the next school year admitted me. And so I was off to boarding school. Boy, was it a big wake-up call. I mean, it was the first time sleeping away from home, for school and whatnot. Collared shirt, tie, sport jacket, slacks, dress shoes, clean shaven every day. It was a pretty buttoned up place. That was my experience on the exterior. But wow, the culture on the inside of the school was completely different. There was a ton of students from the inner city, a lot from Philadelphia, from New York. Culturally, the school, it wasn't like what I was expecting boarding school to be.
And I will show you how to open our bottle of champagne. You need to remove the foil, like this. Turn the wire.
There was like a street code there, and it was almost, dare I say, kind of like prison.
Get tongue in his mouth. It belongs to you, motherfucking right you do. And turn around and pay attention, bitch.
Now, don't get me wrong, it was still a college preparatory school, but the students that were there, you could just tell that if they didn't go to school there, I mean, there was a good chance that they were going to be juvenile delinquents or in jail. I mean, I'm just being honest. Now, it certainly could have changed by now, and I hope it has. But whoa, man, I'll tell you what, besides my grades being like completely turned around there and, just excelling academically, I tell you that when I went to school there, I don't know how to say this in a very politically correct way, but I'm just going to come right out and say it. I learned how to fight. Yeah, that's the fact. I mean, you necessarily may not have been fighting every day, but I can tell you that you were going to throw hands at least once a day. And even if it was just joking with some of the people that you lived with in the cottages, which were the dormitories, I mean, man, I'll tell you what, like my hands got pretty fast there. That's just how it was. There was two different sides to Church Farm. There was the dormitory side. I mean, the campus is split in right down the middle, and there's a major road that goes right down the middle. On one side of the campus are all the dorms. On the other side of the campus are all the athletic fields and academic buildings. When you were in school, it was pretty buttoned up, and it was a pretty straightforward preparatory school. After sports in the afternoon, when you had to cross back over to the dormitory side of the campus, I mean, there was a pecking order. I have never in my entire life, now granted, I was a freshman. I had never in my entire life met tougher dudes. I mean, you just knew that there was students who went there that under no circumstance you fucked with. But let me tell you, I saw a lot of fights go down there. I saw a shift in people who went there and, you know, they were just kind of, dare I say, soft suburban white kids. And by the end of the school year, I mean, I'll tell you what, they were sticking up for themselves pretty darn good. Man, I'll tell you what, that place made you just get tough. And I don't really know, I don't really think it was a function of it being an all boys school. I really think that it was just such a high number of inner city kids that came from environments where it was kill or be killed. You know, the almost kind of like the natural selection at work. I did great academically there. Now I did transfer out after my first year. I think it was a combination of there not being any girls who attended there. I just felt like I needed to be around the opposite sex. So, you know, at the time, I was a pretty good baseball player. I was a 4-year varsity starter on baseball teams that I played on. I believe I still hold the school record at Church Farm for the first no-hitter that was ever thrown on their baseball team. Okay, so enough about me. Let's get into some of the videos. I'll give you a little bit of the history of the place first, and then we'll get into a video about a virtual tour of the place, and then I'll comment from there. So let's go.
The story of Church Farm School actually began in 1882. Years later, was created a school for boys from difficult backgrounds, especially sons of single mothers struggling to make ends meet. When the 125-acre Moorhead homestead in Glenlock came up for sale, the Reverend Schreiner raised enough money to purchase the land and farming equipment. He firmly believed that adequate training for life involved using hands and minds, and intended to prepare his students well to meet life's challenges.
Well, I'll tell you this right out of the gate, that when I went to Church Farm, I wasn't used to having to do, some menial labor, if you want to put it that way. I mean, they made you wash the dishes, and you had to do chores, and there was all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I right out of the gate, I can tell you that you get structure at Church Farm, and I'll tell you that I think I saw a lot of young men there really wrap their arms around the spirit of that discipline and structure that Church Farm gave you.
Word of the new farm school spread throughout the Episcopal community, and young fatherless and orphan boys from across the eastern seaboard soon found themselves at Church Farm School, some as young as 11 years old.
So, from what I understand about Church Farm now, it is grades 9 through 12. When I went there, it was a boarding school from grades 7 through 12. So I believe that they got rid of the 7th and 8th grade there. Guys, comment down below. Let me know if that's changed. I don't believe it has.
Rare exception, got their second choice in life here. I don't think we realized that was happening when we were here, but looking back, we know what happened here.
I can tell you right now that there was guys at Church Farm that if they weren't students there and they had to be students back at their old public school, they would have been in jail. Period. End of story. So this guy speaks a lot of truth.
Many came from big cities, Philadelphia, New York, Baltimore, and had never seen a cow up close or knew that potatoes grew underground. But before long, they learned that hard work, dirt, and grime were now part of their everyday lives.
I remember everything about the farm, and my primary job was taking care of 350 pigs. We were all sorted.
There was not a farm when I went there.
I know back.
The first cottage, Woodside,
Woodside?
was completed in 1918, with 9 more added over the next 70 years. The Chapel of the Atonement, named in honor of West Philadelphia's Church of the Atonement,
Nice place.
is one of Church Farm School's most beloved buildings.
Real nice on the
Besides
inside.
twice weekly worship serves as the setting for a treasured school tradition, the Christmas pageant. In 1924, the Colonel selected a short story called Why the Chimes Rang.
I just saw a quick photo of that guy, and I believe that was my 9th grade English teacher, Ray Greenblatt. Ray, if that was you, comment down below. You were a very smart man.
An annual Christmas time production by the school, with students pantomiming both male and female roles in elaborate costumes. The pageant annually drew thousands during its 3-day run each December.
I'm just going to tell you a really quick story. So we had advisors, and my advisor, his name was Max Dobles. Now, Max Dobles was the toughest motherfucker I ever met in my entire life. Vietnam vet. At the time, he was the principal of the middle school. And I remember me and my roommate, we were sitting in chapel one day, and we had the giggles. I mean, we just had the giggles that we just could not get rid of. And we were sitting right next to Mr. Goebbels. And I think it was a Wednesday. Anyway, chapel service ended. We got up to leave. And Mr. Goebbels just put his hand in front of us. He wouldn't let us leave. The entire school emptied out of the chapel, and me and my roommate, his name was John, sat there in silence next to Mr. Goebbels. He said, "Follow me, boys. We're going out back." And me and my roommate just looked at one another like, oh man, this is going to be bad. So Mr. Dobles basically drug us behind the chapel, right next to some cornfields, and very calmly said, "If you ever do that again and embarrass me like that, I'll kill the two of you." I want to say that there was a piece of me that thought he was kidding or thought that he was exaggerating. He wasn't. Because I saw Mr. Dobles basically grab people by their ties and cinch it up to the point where they basically couldn't breathe. He was the toughest dude. He was the toughest administrator and teacher that I've ever met in my entire life. Didn't get excited, didn't get flustered. No. Probably what happens when you've experienced combat in Vietnam. So he straightened us out real fast.
Larger public relations boom was a Saturday Evening Post story in 1954 entitled "The School That Came from Nothing." As the Post was one of the era's most popular periodicals in the United States, financial support for the school and its mission of serving fatherless boys came in from across the nation. It's a strong athletics program which includes golf, basketball, wrestling, baseball, tennis, 3 seasons of track, soccer, lacrosse, and bowling for all skill levels.
Even when I played soccer there, we were always very athletically talented, but never really technically gifted. Even when I switched boarding schools and we would play Church Farm, our coaches to us then used to say, okay, we're playing Church Farm today, guys. Look, they're really athletic, maybe not so good technically on the ball. That was true.
These in a variety of disciplines. Simultaneously,
Mr. Sanderson, I believe that was. Man, my memory's pretty good. 20 plus years later. Jeez.
widespread decline of farming nationwide was mirrored at CFS. Child labor and pasteurization laws sealed the fate of the school's dairy operation, and the entire herd was sold by 1978. The work program endured through the 80s and 90s, but was eventually supplanted by community service, which remains an important component of the school's program.
I had to do that there.
Following a national search, the board of directors selected Charlie's son, Terry, as the school's third headmaster in 1987.
Terry Schreiner. Terry Schreiner was the headmaster when I went to Church Farm. And what's amazing is that when I switched schools after Church Farm, I went to a different boarding school. I went to the Westtown School. Terry Schreiner was a graduate of Westtown. So, small world.
Under Terry's guidance, the sale of more than 1,600 acres to the county and township enabled the creation of a robust endowment, which strengthened the school's ability to provide an affordable education to all qualified students.
Oh, it certainly did, because I can tell you this, that as of a couple of years ago, I know that the Church Farm School had, nationally speaking, was in the top 20 for highest endowments out of all boarding schools. I believe that they were probably north of 150 million, so it's pretty high.
In 2009, Church Farm School hired the Reverend Edmund Sherrill II as its fourth head of school. Ed came to the school with vast experience in boarding schools and a passion for the mission.
Ned has been just a beautiful combination of all of them.
I feel like I've heard this song before in other boarding school videos.
He is very good at showing his passion.
I had one of those red jackets.
It's more than just being here for a job. It's being here for vocational interest and responsibility. And vocation is best defined. The best definition I've ever heard is where your greatest joy meets the world's deepest need. And I think that really defines being at Church Farm School, not just for me, but for the men and women who work here. It has displayed some type of extra special promise that Church Farm School will be truly the thing that sort of springboards them into their future.
Listen, I mean, just from my memory, I can think of some students who went there who, I mean, just went beyond excelling. I mean, they went into the stratosphere of excelling. The Bronx, the Prempehs. I mean, you're talking about some pretty talented and smart kids who really took it to the next level. I wouldn't be surprised if they're doctors by now.
Dairy farmers, you name it, all the folks who interact with the boys.
There he is, the legend, Art Smith. I remember having earth science in Art Smith's classroom, and you want to talk about a guy who had a 0 bullshit meter. I mean, it was through the roof.
Motivated. There's really a brotherhood here that I have not seen anywhere else. Our students care about one another. They like to.
I will actually confirm that, because let me tell you something. I created friendships and bonds with people, students there, that even after I left and transferred to a different boarding school about 20 minutes away, I remember that when I went there and we would play Church Farm the following year, and Church Farms, the students would come to our campus, and even before the game, I knew every single one of them. And every single one of them shake my hand, give me a pound, and I felt like I had a connection to them. And I still do. I feel like the experience of Church Farm really made me become responsible for my actions. I felt like it made me become more of a man of integrity and character. And maybe that's because, as simple as they have an honor code there. You know, when you take tests at Church Farm, teacher leaves the room. There's nobody in there. They deal and operate with an honor code. And it's on you to act accordingly. You know, just a person of high integrity. So, yeah, in some weird way, I feel like I had a closer bond in my 1 year there with some of the students than I did in 3 years of boarding school that I ended up graduating from.
On one another, they like to have fun with each other, but you never cross that line with your brothers here. And they're so encouraging to one another, which I think is fantastic. So while they are competitive, they're really interested in making sure that everyone as a collective is successful, because they feel as if I'm successful and my brother is not successful, then we've all failed. So that kind of group mentality and that we all succeed together, I think, is something that's magical. The fact that 100% of our students get accepted in four-year colleges and universities every single year is amazing, and that our students are getting great national scholarships.
I'm just going to say this, that I think Church Farm locally gets a bad rep because of the student body. You know, there's a lot of kids, like I said previously, that come from the inner city, come from, you know, I don't want to say unsavory neighborhoods or broken homes. But I'll tell you what, Church Farm, it did the job. It really did. It straightened me out. And I don't even really know like how I needed to be straightened out, but it made me grow up. It toughened me up. I excelled scholastically there. And for what its mission is, it does a pretty damn good job of it. I mean, really, it really does. Okay, guys, so enough with the history of Church Farm. Let's get to a virtual tour of the campus. the infirmary. I remember one time I was just not well, and the nurse that they had in the infirmary, I swear to God, she must have made me drink half a gallon of kaopectate. I don't know why I thought of that, but man, whew. This is amazing. There's a tunnel that goes underneath the highway that splits the campus. And to get from the dormitory side to the academic building side, you have to go down the steps, under a tunnel, and walk back up some steps to the other side of campus. Now, it looks like they've updated it with LED lights down there and whatnot. When I went down there, when I was there, it was like a couple light bulbs. And man, if any of you guys have been on the New York subway system at like 4 in the morning in somewhere really sketchy, that's what it used to be like. So well done. Looks a lot better now. Library. Legend. You know, looking at this this athletic center where there was the basketball court, and when I went there, we used to have wrestling practice on like an adjacent um, wrestling mats, and you know, you want to talk about a rivalry. I remember when I went there, our rival was another school called Delaware County Christian School. And they had the reputation of being like a very kind of snobby, almost 100% Caucasian student body. And I remember that during wrestling practice, because I wrestled my freshman year, at the end of practice, for like 5 minutes straight, we would just run in place and just get into such a frenzy and repetitively just kept yelling out loud, Delco, 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 which was the nickname for that school. And you would see these guys work themselves up into such a frenzy of, you know, just a state of mind where it was almost like it was so important that our school, collectively, even with all of these kids from all over the place, especially in the inner city, that we were kind of coming together as one, like a band of brothers, and we were going to focus all of our energy um, to getting respect, whether it would or whether that meant, you know, on the wrestling mat, on the basketball court, we were going to get respect. End of story. And most times, we got it. Man, it just brings back so many memories of my very early teenage years, and you know, just just really turning the chapter on the next. Um, I should say, turning the page on the next chapter of my life as a young man. And as I'm sitting here, thinking about getting dropped off at this school, which I'd only visited once, and it was on this big farm with all this land, and it really needs to be said that it is a place that takes individuals, generally speaking, with a lower chance of success in life, and really opens up the door of opportunity to really, really give them a solid foundation that otherwise they just wouldn't have had. So, I got to say that, for what Church Farm School is, it's not the Exeters, it's not the Eatons, it's not the Choates. This is a place that gives people a sense of real opportunity and self-respect that they may have not uh, have been surrounded with previously to going there, which I think is it's super important. It's a good mission for a school, and it definitely helps people become more well-rounded individuals. Um, and there's so many names that are just coming to my head just out of nowhere. Joey Simatamore. Um, man, Greg Robinson, Henry Prempe, Bart Bronk, um, Sheldon Sherwood, Dwayne Jones, John Barrett. I mean, you're it's all these names that you just remember from a very, very small time in your life. And anyway, enough of the reminiscing. Let me get to the dude score. That boarding school dude, Church Farm School, 7.25. 7.25, that's the score I'm giving it. and that's the score that I'm sticking with. For what it is, it does the job. Does it have the name recognition and status of the Andovers and the Deerfields? And no, but it pumps out well-rounded young men to give them a chance at excelling at college and the next level. So, guys, thanks so much. Woo, man, that was interesting. That was interesting going down memory lane like that. And I hope I did it justice and gave it a fair score. And man, I don't know. I'm thinking that I might have to follow this one up with the school that I graduated from. I don't know. Only time will tell. But again, guys, thanks so much. I'll see you soon.